Hello students, let us study the poetry part from General English for BA BCom BSc second year. The poems are Daffodils written by William Wordsworth, Because I Could Not Stop for Death by Emily Dickinson, Lake Isle of Innisfree by W.B. Yeats, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Our first poem is Daffodils written by William Wordsworth. He was a leader of romantic movement in England. Wordsworth said that poetry is spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Another idea Wordsworth expressed is that poetry is emotion recollected in tranquility. This means that a poet might observe a beautiful scene or listen to a melodious song. These emotions are recalled after a lapse of time. Poetry is composed of such recollections. A short poem like Daffodils is called a lyric. A lyric is originally a song sung by one person on a musical instrument known as lyre, hence named the lyre. But the lyre is no longer necessary as an accompaniment to a lyric. The lyric is a subjective poem that it talks about the personal emotions of the poet. It is marked by imaginations, melody and emotions. You will notice all these qualities in Daffodils.
Daffodils by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils.
If you have listened to the poem earlier, you would have some ideas of its theme. The original title of the poem was I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. Wordsworth visited Grasmere, where there is a lake called Ullswater, in 1802 on the shore of lake. There were beautiful flowers known as daffodils. Flowers are golden yellow in color. In the month of March, it was an unforgettable sight for the poet. He recalled his emotions in tranquility. The poem is in 4 stanzas. The first stanza describes the scene as the poet was wandering over the hills and valleys alone like a cloud. He suddenly sees a large number of daffodils which are golden yellow in color. These flowers are located beside a lake and under the trees. As they swing due to breeze, it looked as though they were dancing. This stanza continues the description. The flowers are compared to the stars in the sky. There are countless stars shining in the Milky Way. Similarly, a large number of daffodils, which are endless rows on the lake shore. In a single glance, the poet could see thousands of flowers swaying in the wind. This movement is like a joyful dance. The shining waves in the lake also seemed to be danced, but the dancing of the daffodils was more beautiful. A poet could, like him, feels happy because the sight of the stars in the sky. The waves in the lake and daffodils in the ground is very enjoyable. The scene is so attractive that it's not easy to turn one's eye away. While watching the beauty, the poet does not realize what wealth this rich experience gave him. Often when he relaxes on his couch, either idling away or meditating, the sight of the daffodils come back to his memory, suddenly like a flash. When he is lonely, the memory of the experiences give him great pleasure and his heart dances with daffodils. Let us know the theme of the poem. Wordsworth is a poet of nature. He enjoys nature, the clouds, the valleys, the hills, the stars, the lakes, the trees, the flowers, and the waves. All these are described by the poet. All these are admired by the poet. They are also a source of pleasure. Nature has so much to offer and make him happy. Each the recollection of beautiful experiences give him great joy. The next poem is Because I Could Not Stop for Death by Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson lived like a recluse, cut off from society. Her poetry reflects her loneliness, her depression, and her strong likes and dislikes. Her originality, insights, and innovations won her a place as a great poet only after her death. She wrote a very large number of poems. The better known poems are packed with thoughts and language. She uses images, paradoxes, irony, and diction in her poems to reveal the deep truths. Her poems have a conventional tone and give the impression that the poet is talking to us intimately. They are like personal messages or letters. Let us read the poem.
Because I Could Not Stop for Death by Emily Dickinson. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too, for his civility. We passed the school where children strove, at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were towards eternity.
Let me describe the poem. Death is like a gentleman who comes to the poet for an outing. They travel in a coach which has space only for three: death, the poet, and immortality. Both death and immortality are personified in this poem. That is, these are treated as human beings. Second stanza, the poet describes that death is not in hurry. They drive slowly, he is polite. She postpones her work and her rest to meet such a courteous person. As they travel in coach, they see the familiar sights of the village, the school, the fields, and the sunset. The children are playing in interval or recess. The travelers see the grain in the fields. As they move ahead, the sun is setting. As they drove, it looks as they pass them and not the passing sun. Mist is gathering and causing cold. The fine light material of her clothes, her gown, her scarf, and her thin fabric material feel that the chill after her sunset. They passed a bulge as they travel in the coach, but they could not see it stop. The bulge is like the ornamental molding on the walls, but it is in the ground, not on the top. The journey with death has been going on for centuries, but it seemed to be less than a day. The poet on her journey suddenly realizes that heads of the horses are pulling the carriage or pointing towards eternity. Let us know the theme of the poem. Death and immortality are recurring themes in Emily Dickinson's poetry. This particular poem is entirely devoted to these. It reveals the poet's attitude to death and immortality. Her view of immortality is not the usual Christian view. This poem is a typical Dickinson's habit of combining the noble and common. The poet uses travel as a metaphor for a journey to death. In a poem which uses the journey as its central metaphor for its meaning, the word paused is used four times in stanza 3rd and 4th. Death is pausing, a movement away from life. Also, there is a double meaning on paused and paused. They paused and the paused is a great passage from time to eternity. The key words death and immortality appear in the first stanza itself. The poet announces her theme in the beginning itself. The phrase setting sun in 3rd stanza underlines the ideas of death. Life is journey over. The dew and chill in the 4th stanza are also reminders of the coldness of death. The swelling in the grave where a dead body is buried, death takes away people every day. It has been doing so for centuries. The horses which carries the dead look towards eternity indicates that death's journey is taking place to its grave unending. Immortality in the 1st stanza and eternity in the last stanza are linked. In fact, eternity in the last word in the poem. The suggestion is that death as the driver of the carriage takes us to immortality and into eternity. Our next poem is The Lake Isle of Innisfree by W.B. Yeats. Yeats is considered to be the greatest poet in English language. He was an Irishman who wrote poetry, plays and prose. He was a leader in the movement for Irish literary renaissance. With the help of Lady Gregory and James Synge, he founded Abbey Theatre in 1904. He also took part in the Irish nationalist movement and fell in love with Maud Gonne, a beautiful revolutionary leader. But she did not requite his love. Yeats began writing poetry as a teenager. In the first phase of his writing career, he was influenced by the British poet Shelley, Spenser, and Pre-Raphaelites William Morris, D.G. Rossetti, and Blake. He wanted to write for the Irish people on Irish theme with Irish settings. He drew upon the fairy and folk tales of Ireland. Thus, he helped in promoting an interest in Irish literature. Later in his career, he was influenced by the French symbolist Verlaine and Mallarmé. His work in his phase is noted for symbolism. In 1912, he met Ezra Pound, an American poet who influenced his poetry. Yeats won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. He passed away in 1939. Let us read the poem.
The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin builder of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon's a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for all was night and day. I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. When I stand on the roadway, or on the pavements grey. I hear it in the deep heart's core.
The poet announces his intention to go at once to Innisfree and build a small cabin with clay and wooden walls. He plans to have 9 beans rows and a hive for the honeybee. He wants to live alone in the cabin, the clean, open space. He hopes to lead a quiet life in Innisfree. The slow-paced life in the lake will be a contrast to the fast-paced and noisy life in cities like London. Such peace prevails from mist in the early morning till the cricket sings at night. The whole day will be very peaceful. The lights shine through the midnight. At noon there is a purple glow, which is a reflection of heather or purple flowers in the water. In the evening, the tiny bird flaps its wing. The poet once again declares his intention to go to Innisfree immediately. There he can listen to the sounds of lake, water lapping on the shore. While he stands in the crowded streets of London, on the grave pavements, watching the din and bustle in the stand, he could not hear the lake water lapping shore in the Innisfree. The theme of the poem is, this poem presents an attractive picture of life in a remote, rural, quiet place like Lake Island of Innisfree. This kind of life is a contrast to the busy, noisy, polluted surroundings of a city. It's a romantic theme treated in a romantic language. Also, life in the natural surrounding is more healthy and free from cares and anxieties. The poet's longing for a peaceful, simple life is an indirect comment on the hazards of living in a crowded, dusty life. Several other poets like William Wordsworth and Matthew Arnold, who belong to an earlier period, also expressed dissatisfaction with city life and preferred a more peaceful rural life. In short, the theme is escape from the stress of city life. Our next poem is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. His themes and settings related mostly to New England, a region in the northeastern part of the United States. His language is of the same area. He is careful observer of the people and the life. He describes them in simple words, images and sentence patterns. He uses a conventional tone. His poems narrate delightfully experience and concluded in wise observations. He has said that a poem begins in delight and ends in wisdom. Many of his poems follow this principle. This was the view held by an ancient Latin poet, Horace, who said that a poem has 2 functions, to delight, to instruct. A good delights as it instructs and instruct as it delights. According to Frost, his poems are clarifications of life. These clarifications often appear as wise sayings at the end of his poems. These clarifications provide comfort in an indifferent and impersonal world.
Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods are these? I think I know. His house is in the village, though. You will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Let me describe the poem. As the poet stops on evening in winter in New England, he stops near a forest. He has a rough idea of the owner of the woods. The owner lives in the village and he cannot see him stopping near the woods. The purpose of stopping there is to see the snow filling up the wood. It's a wonderful sight. The poet is riding a horse. His halt at the woods might appear strange to his horse because there is no farmhouse between the woods and the frozen lake. Also, it is the darkest evening of the year. The horse may wonder why on such a cloudy and dark evening he stopped at the woods, where there is no farmhouse and no sign of life. The horse shakes the harness, causing the bells of ring. It is perhaps the horses of the way, asking if he had made any mistake in stopping there. The only other sounds at that place is the blowing of the wind and the snowflakes. It's very quiet except for these sounds. On such an evening, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. One could stay there forever and watch the beautiful sight. But there are duties and responsibilities which compel one to leave the place. One can sleep or die only after fulfilling one's obligations. The journey to the woods on horseback is the journey of life. The speaker has a long way to go before he can rest. His worldly responsibilities remind him to move ahead. Let us know the theme of the poem. The first three stanzas of this beautiful poem gives the description of the woods getting filled by snow in the evening in New England. Although there is so much to enjoy in this world, the man is faced by his duties and responsibilities. These promises or obligations or commitments must be fulfilled before one can rest and enjoy. Life is a long and difficult journey because of obligations it imposes on us. Dear students, hope you have enjoyed today's poems. Goodbye till next program.